Coming up next on All About Android, it's me, Jason Howell, my co-host Ron Richards. Win is out, but we have our guest, Daniel Bader from Android Police, and we've got a lot of news to talk about. Android 13 Beta 1 released just today, in fact, and it's really great, except we have a total cautionary tale. Do not install it before watching this episode. We talk about that at the top of the news block. Also, Android 14 gets its dessert code name, and I'm not sure that it looks very delicious. Pixel Watch gets left at a restaurant for Android news sites to pick up on. Google Wallet is becoming more real again, and the Play Store is finally getting its data safety section, plus your email and a whole lot more next on All About Android.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Trade Coffee. Right now, Trade is offering new subscribers a total of $30 off your first order, plus free shipping when you go to drinktrade.com/AAA. That's more than 40 cups of coffee for free. Get started by taking their quiz and let Trade find you coffee you'll love. Hello, welcome to All About Android. This is episode 575, recorded on Tuesday, April 26th, 2022. Your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I am Ron Richards.
Yes, indeed. The two of us are here this evening. Win Tweedow, she is off this evening. And actually, we are welcoming back a guest to this show. We haven't had you on in so long, and I'm so sorry about that, but it's great to have you back. Daniel Bader, Editor-in-Chief at Android Police. Welcome back, Daniel.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to get you back on here. It has been a minute. We were just talking about this before the show started. Your last appearance was election night 2016, and a whole lot has happened since then. It was 2016, right? Like not 2018.
Yeah.
Yes, 2016.
2016, yeah.
So it's been far too long. A lot of life has happened. You've had, you're actually expecting another child here in a couple of weeks, but you had your first child a couple of years ago. We've all had a lot of life happen in the time that you haven't been here. So it's great to finally get you back on. And you're new-ish, sort of at this point, to Android Police. So
I did. I've been going around the Android website circuit. So I started at Android Central. Now I'm at Android Police. Who knows where I'll go next?
Well, there's a few options, but we're not going to name those options. I think Android Police is...
They're dead to me.
Yeah, exactly. It is just fine. Well, it's great to get you on. And we actually have a lot of really great stories on deck to talk about tonight, and some cautionary tales. That's coming up right now. Burke, let's jump into the news.
I'm sure one of the subjects we'll have today is what Android News' new codename will be.
Oh. And
wait
also,
a minute. Burke sounds like Burke, do you have a head cold? What's going on? You sound a little different tonight.
Yeah, just a little grumble.
Oh, wow.
I know the reality is that Burke and Victor are actually the same person. They just they do voices. It's a thing.
Just voices.
Yes, it's a thing. So, don't know if you heard, but today's kind of a big day in the world of Android because Android 13 Beta 1 is out. And what does this mean really? Essentially what it means is this is the first beta of Android 13 that doesn't require you to go through jump through hurdles in order to install it. This allows you to opt in via the beta program and do the automatic update, which we can talk about that in a moment because I've got some choice words, and I know you do too, Daniel, about that. But before we do, what can you expect, or so I assume, when you install Android 13 Beta 1? Some of the features that you might see. I'm not sure about the under the hood stuff, but some of the ones that I pulled out that sound at least somewhat intriguing. Actually, this first one is kind of interesting. Anyone with a treble compatible phone or treble compliant phone rather. Can install Android 13 Beta via the generic system images. And I don't think that's necessarily possible through the beta program. Right, Daniel? That's not something that's automatic. That's something you do have to work for in order to install it on just any treble phone, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a GSI. It's not something that you can opt into. You have to basically wipe your phone, unlock your bootloader. You have to go through a bit of a process. And your phone, I mean, this won't apply to basically anybody who isn't listening, but your phone had to also have shipped with at least Android 8. I mean, I think that's probably not a problem anymore, but that's when Treble debuted in 2017. But yeah, it's a great way to sort of test out Android 13, but it's not the same robustness, I guess, as it would be if you're running it on a Pixel. Android 13 beta was built for Pixels. This is not going to be as feature rich. It's certainly not going to be as stable. But if you want to try it on a phone that will support it, you certainly can.
Interesting. So it's kind of analogous to like what you get. I mean, it's not the same thing, but what you get if you installed AOSP versus the Pixel version of an Android release. It's kind of like they're basically the same version of Android. It's just one's going to be a lot more stripped down from some of the extra kind of extended features by comparison.
Not exactly. So this isn't AOSP in the same sense that, like, if you were to basically build Android from scratch and then install it on a Pixel or something like that, that wouldn't have any Google mobile services. It would have nothing like that. This does have GMS included, but there are going to be some serious bugs, and Google has pointed out a few of them. Rebooting phone audio, it's not going to be quite as stable. But it's available for any device that supports treble. And if you can give it a go, it's actually quite fun. It's sort of like the days of the Google Play editions.
Okay. All right, that's a better comparison. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Although, also with the reminder that, hey, these are meant for developers. These are early versions of Android 13. While it is Android 13, those bugs could be deal breakers. So definitely keep that in mind. Just because it's out of the developer preview and into the beta doesn't necessarily mean it's good to go. You might encounter things that are really going to ruin your day. Again, we'll talk about that
especially
in a second.
Especially at beta 1, right? I mean, like, we've gone through developer previews. You assume the kinks have been worked out. But regardless, when you're doing this on a beta level, you're going to, like, not every app is optimized, right? Like, there are things that just kind of happen. I mean, Jason, and I'm sure Daniel, you got way more experience than I do because I don't want to be dysfunctional in my daily basis.
Beta tester.
I avoid this, right?
Maybe I should. But squiggly playback bar on the lock screen media player, which, I mean, that's a pretty minor inclusion, minor feature. But when I saw kind of shots of this, kind of has that like playful Material U quality to it. Kind of falls in line with the design aesthetic that we're starting to see with Material U with the last version and now into Android 13. A bunch of, speaking of, a bunch of new Material U theming options to pick from, which I think, from my understanding, it's kind of like before, I think you had 2 or 3 Material U palettes that were pulled, and now it's something like 12. So it gives you more options around theming based on, these color palettes that are pulled out of what is the word I'm looking for? Your home screen image. There you go. Smart home controls now working without authentication, which is a really great feature that I know I have missed. I get the smart home screen, and I go to change the color of the light or the dimming of the light. And then the second I release my finger, it's like, okay, now authenticate your thumbprint and, or your fingerprint. And so having to do that on something like that, it's nice that I don't have to do that anymore. A new Clipboard Editor, so the ability to edit what's stored in your clipboard. That sounds interesting. There's also some strings of code that seem to confirm what we were talking about very recently. Michelle Rahman, friend of the show, was on a few weeks back and was talking about the possibility of a removable, like a detachable Nest Hub tablet. And apparently there's some strings of code in Android 13 that further hint at that. And who knows? We've got Google I/O right around the corner, so maybe we're going to see that. But Any features that, at least on paper, that stood out for you, Daniel? Maybe one of the ones I've read already, but anything else beyond that?
Yeah, I think the additional theming options are going to appeal to a lot of people who really like Material U. I play with this with every wallpaper I apply to my phone. Every time, inevitably, I will find the perfect accent colors. So having 4 times the number of options here is just like, it's music to my ears. I'm going to go crazy with this because I changed my wallpaper.
Is that going to hinder you from actually getting work done? Are you going to just sit there doing color combinations all day?
Today was a disaster, Ron, because I love installing betas because I go through every single screen to try to see if there's new stuff. Thankfully, Michal is like, he makes this easy for everybody now because he just really knows everything and puts it in a really easy to read format.
He basically posts like a full manual of every beta. It's like, here's everything and literally everything you need to know. And we
don't deserve it, but I appreciate it so much.
Totally agree.
And I love the squiggly line progress bar on the media player. Like, not only does it look great along with all the other improvements that have come to Android 13, but just I love these tiny little accents. It makes Android feel so much fun, and it makes the Pixel in particular just feel new every time you load a new Android version, right? Like, think about the people that are going from, say, a Pixel 4 or a Pixel 5 running Android 12. They have no interest in installing a beta come July, August when the final version is released. Like, they're going to see all of these cumulative updates in one fell swoop. I get excited for people like that because, as minor as some of these, release to release updates have been, cumulatively, I think Android 13 is going to be a massive update for people running Android 12 right now.
That's an important distinction to make because, as you know, people like you and I, anyone who's such a fan of Android and listens and watches this show and is kind of on the train of always constantly being up to date on the latest beta, it is easy to fall into the hole of, gosh, these things seem really minor and everything. But that's a really great reminder. It is the cumulative effect. That is how 90% of everyone that has a phone that might be upgraded is going to experience the jump. They're going to experience all of that at once, and that makes it more meaningful at that point, for sure.
Totally. Yeah.
Now, Ron, did you have any thoughts? Like,
nope.
anything that you've no?
Not really. No.
Okay. Well, Ron, are you ready for a little bit of complaining, whining?
I love it. I mean, all about Android, all about complaining. Let's do it.
All right. And I just discovered in pre-show that this didn't just happen to me. This also happened to you, Daniel. So I apologize, or I don't apologize. I'm sorry that it happened to you, just as I'm sorry that it happened to me. So I will read you the notes that I wrote down prior to actually doing the thing. I wrote a little note here that said, if you are on 12.1 beta channel, or the 12 beta channel, you can opt out and it will tell you that your device will need to be wiped. Don't worry, opt out and then opt in, and you'll get the option to opt into Android 13 beta with no device wipe. Okay, this is something that I read in a few articles, and I was convinced that they were right, and maybe they were right. I'm really not sure. I did this, and my device got wiped. In fact, this is the only device that I have at work right now. And so I can't even log into my account on it because it's 2-factor authentication that requires another one of my devices to authenticate with.
Oh, no.
So, and they're at home. It's no big deal. Like, when I get home, I'll be able to do it. But it was just a big bummer to expect that my phone would not be wiped because, well, that's what Google said. And then to discover that it was, I know personally on my device, I store a lot of music ideas that I'm working on. Some of them get backed up. Some of them don't until they're further refined. And so all of those I've lost, whatever those are. And it's not the end of the world. It's just a bummer that I wasn't prepared for. What about you, Daniel? Because this happened to you as well, right?
Yeah. So I was running the QPR3 beta. I genuinely thought that Google had this figured out. The UX seemed pretty clear, right? You opt out of one, you go to opt into the other, you select the Android 13 beta program, and you receive an over-the-air update to Android 13. However, in order to do that, you have to decline the first over-the-air update that it sends you, which
that's what I didn't do.
Sends you back to the Android 12 public release. And if you don't decline that, you end up installing Android 12 and it wipes your phone. And they don't tell you you have to do that on the website.
God. Okay.
So you're basically left to figure that out for yourself. Now, 9 to 5 Google said that Google has identified an edge case where if you opt out and you only see one program to enroll back into, which would be the Android 12 QPR3 beta, then you do have to wipe. But this whole notion that Google does not walk you through on your device that you have to decline the first over-the-air update to inevitably get the second one that will install Android 13 beta is a UX nightmare, even for power users like us. And this should never have happened because they never should have had this process in the first place. They should not have combined Android 12 beta and Android 13 beta in the same place with a UX like what we have today. It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and even when if you're opted into that first, Android 12 QPR version already, when you opt out, it makes no mention of anything in that process of Android 13 or anything. It's just like, if you opt out of this, your device is going to be wiped, okay?
Correct.
And so, and when I saw that, I was like, oh, wait a minute, no, abort. And then I read the articles that were like, you do that. And then you opt right in, and then it gives you the actual option to either opt into the QPR. Yeah, that screen. It gives you that after the fact, but you don't know that initially. So it's just, there's a couple of points along that process where you're picking blindly, and there was no, like you said, there was no way for me to know what was actually happening there. I didn't realize that I needed to reject that first over-the-air update, nor did I think that would be necessary, because I purposefully waited a few hours and then did the update, thinking that if I opt out of this and then I opt into that, there might be the possibility of there being some confusion there, because I know some of these things take time. So I thought if I give it a couple of hours and then I do it, that confusion will be cleared up. Of course, that's an assumption that I made, and I was wrong. But
that's a sensible assumption.
Yeah, I thought. Right. But anyways, it didn't work out. So this is just basically a cautionary tale to anyone who's already opted in to the older version the way we were, and you want to check out 13. Just be really, really cautious about it, because yes, you can wipe your device, contrary to what you may have read in some places. So
just completely unintuitive to what you would think the process would be.
Yeah.
Right.
This also goes back to a problem Google put itself in when the Android 13 developer preview was living alongside the Android 12 beta program for the QPRs. Because occasionally people running the developer preview would get over-the-air prompts to, quote, upgrade to the Android 12 beta because the beta build was actually newer than the Android 13 developer preview. And then they would install it thinking that it was something they could do, and then it would fail because they were going to an older or a lower SDK version. And it just, like, that whole process, like, Google just shot itself in the foot by even thinking that it was possible to navigate internally, like their own systems, trying to push different over-the-air updates to different people in an intuitive way. And today's, like, it's not surprising that this happened, because I'm sure it happened to more people than just you and me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would agree. I wasn't expecting, like, I was totally expecting when I mentioned this to be like, oh, well, Jason, you totally failed to see the thing, the blah, blah, blah. But instead I was met with, oh, yeah, that happened to me too, which tells me, yes, it absolutely is happening to other people if you and I happen to have it happen on the same day. So big time caution there for everyone listening and watching.
Big red flag. Big red flag.
Yeah. Yes. It's turned upside down is what it is, Ron.
So, I mean, yeah, we got to get that right side up. But Jason, in comparison to your two-factor stumbling on This Week in Google a few years ago, is this worse?
Oh, this is
than that.
No.
Well, because you lost everything on your phone. It wiped it.
Well,
like the two-factor one locked you out of the phone, but you recovered the access.
The two-factor one had the potential of locking me out of everything in the cloud. And I'm lucky that I got back in. I think the two-factor thing was a much bigger risk of, because I feel like, for better or for worse, my exposure because of the show, I think made it easier for me to get back into that account. I think other people in that situation probably would have a harder time and might not be able to regain access. What I lost on my phone, yes, I lost some data on my phone and I lost some things that... the reality is I couldn't even tell you exactly what it is that I lost. And so at the end of the day, it's kind of like, all right, this is what I went through not too long ago when I had that hard drive that I dropped. And that hard drive had a bunch of, not backed up outside of that hard drive music projects from years ago. And when I really thought about it, I was like, okay, well, I can't really remember exactly what those music projects are. And so if I can't, then it's not like I'm really missing anything important, any of the important stuff I have backed up. So it's kind of the same thing here. Most of the stuff on my phone is backed up, right? Like just by its nature, Google phones back up to the cloud a lot of the really, really important stuff. There's just a few edge cases. And yes, I happen to have those installed on my phone. And so I lost some stuff, but I'm not really that bummed about it. I mean, I'm bummed about it. I wish it hadn't happened, but it's not the end of the world. It's not nearly as bad as it could have been if that two-factor thing didn't work out and I lost literally everything. That's different.
Ooh, crazy.
So,
all right. Well,
but cheer us up with some information looking into the future here, Ron.
Yeah, we'll talk about going upside down.
Exactly.
So what used to be our favorite pastime is now completely ruined as far as I'm concerned, but we'll still talk about it. So as we look at new versions of Android, back in the day, Android versions were named by Google by a dessert. We historically we had so much fun with the honeycomb and the tiramisu and the nougat and the Kit Kat and all that fun stuff. So here we are as Android 13 is rolling out. Even before we can speculate about what Android 14 might be. Android 13, we found out the codename was tiramisu last year. Getting ahead of it, Android 14, upside down cake. Because the next letter would be U.
That's just it. It. This is like a little word cloud that I found on Scattergories, nice. On a site called scattergoriesonline.net, which is just a bunch of desserts that start with the letter U. And thought we'd look through it and see if there was any other real choice, but it's like half of these are upside down blank blank.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if unicorn cake would have made a whole lot of sense. Or
is unsweetened chocolate really one to get behind from a marketing standpoint? Or undercooked cookies.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
That one I like. That's basically cookie dough.
Yeah, exactly.
Undercooked cookies, though, could be very descriptive for a version of Android, depending on how well it runs.
I do like whatever website you found here that's based on a word game for desserts with you list uterus. As a dessert that starts with U, which I don't know what culture you're from, but I don't really consider uterus a dessert.
That's an interesting inclusion.
No,
I'm sure Google would have steered clear of that. Yeah,
as far as I know,
indeed.
I don't know. I just think it's so sad that they took this away from us.
Well, I mean, we kind of have it. It's just now all the fun zapped from it. It's like, oh, here it is. Yeah. And by the way, we're not going to lean into it anymore.
I've never had an upside down cake. But it looks terrible. It does not look appetizing in the way that it's like. I'm looking at these recipes. They all have cherries and pineapples, and that to me is just awful.
Well, so here's the thing: is that you got to be into pineapple, of which I am.
Okay.
Right, and I'm also into cherries. So like pineapple upside down cake is quite the delicacy, and I would recommend it. It doesn't look that appetizing, but it tastes very good. So
I don't know, man. It's like ants on a log to me. It looks like something straight out of the 70s. I don't want that in my life.
Yeah, it totally looks like
with you on
something
Ants Under the
out of the
Log. That's not
70s. It
good.
looks like something
It
you'd see
does.
on an old school Betty Crocker recipe label.
I'm literally
still-
on BettyCrocker.com looking at this recipe.
There you go.
So
It doesn't
there
mean
you
that
go.
it's not good. I mean,
That's
just because
true.
it's a 70s Betty Crocker recipe doesn't mean that it might not be good.
I
So.
know, there's a lot of not good food in those recipe cards, but that's true. There's probably a lot of good food there too. Yeah, it looks kind of like a fruit cake. It has that kind of like weird glazy quality to it. I don't know. I guess I would try it if it were in front of me. Of course I would. And
I'm
I
looking
might
at
have
one
to.
that includes strawberries and rhubarb, and that I would get behind.
Okay.
You see, you lost me at rhubarb. Like I just have I just don't like the word structure, like the letter structure. So like I'm out. You know?
Doesn't take much for Ron.
It doesn't take much. No, it's very strange. So okay.
All right. Well, so maybe someday when Android 14 gets released, we'll have to order in an upside down cake and try it and see what it's all about. I don't know that I've ever had one, to be honest. I don't think that I have. And if I have, it wasn't very memorable,
do it.
apparently. All right.
Well, listen, Jason, I'm going to make you one the next time we all hang out. Then you'll eat it. So, there you go.
All right. I will eat one if you make one, for sure.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I love baking. I love good baking.
All right. Let's take a break and thank the sponsor of this episode, and then we'll talk about a little bit of hardware. Actually, we were just talking about upside down cake. I bet you if you had an upside down cake and a cup of coffee, you'd probably be pretty happy. And so that ties in with our sponsor. The sponsor of this episode of All About Android is Trade Coffee. And I actually have a package. What is Trade Coffee? Trade Coffee is basically a subscription service for coffee. So if you like coffee and you like variety and you just want it to like show up for you and all that, then that's exactly what Trade Coffee is all about. This was obviously, let's see here. This is, you can see inside of the label, Alma Coffee. This is here, why don't I open it? Because this whole packaging is actually biodegradable. So you can put this into your green bin and toss it out with all the food scraps and everything, and it'll biodegrade. You just remove the label on the other side and you drop it in there. But the coffee that we have here, if you were signed up with Trade Coffee, this is Alma Coffee. It's a medium dark roast, rich cacao, sweet caramel, brown sugar, all this stuff. These coffees are sourced from around the world. I actually received at home Verve coffee roasters from Vancouver. It's a Swiss water decaf. And actually, I don't drink a whole lot of caffeinated coffee these days, which a lot of people would be like, how dare you? But, at some point I realized the caffeine in coffee sometimes, plays havoc on me. And so I've gotten really used to drinking decaf. And as a decaf coffee drinker, what I've realized is there's not nearly as much emphasis in stores placed on decaf coffee variety versus caffeinated. You get lots of options with caffeinated coffee, and then you have a few options with decaf. And so you're trying to find those really good options. Well, a service like this with Trade Coffee, it's awesome because you can sign up to receive nothing but decaf options, and they're sourced from around the world. So, it's easy to overlook if you're in the store, but with Trade Coffee, you get tons of options. So it's really great. Trade's coffee team actually tests thousands of coffees. They keep 450 different kinds live and ready to ship every day. So there may not be one perfect coffee, but there is a perfect coffee for you hidden somewhere within there. And the beauty of it is that you can kind of explore along the way, right? Trade's human-powered algorithm is going to find that perfect coffee for you. It's part of this like quiz approach. When you sign up, you kind of take a quiz and it asks you about the different things related to coffee that are important to you and helps you locate the coffee that's right for you. Trade customers are truly impactful for these independent roasters, often being the largest source of new growth for them. Trade Coffee sends you those freshly roasted beans from 60 of the country's best craft roasters. These are small businesses who pay farmers fair prices to sustainably source the greatest beans from around the world. And, what I like, what you like you might not like decaf, but I do. They could be totally different. You're going to like a selection of specific coffees that are different from anyone else and their taste preference, right? So, like I said, they've got that quiz. You just answer a couple of questions. You'll get your own personalized variety of coffees delivered fresh to you as often as you like. No gimmicks attached. Trade delivers a bag of freshly roasted coffee as whole beans, or you can have it delivered as ground, however you prefer to brew it at home. They guarantee you're going to love your first order, or they'll replace it for free. Trade has delivered over 5 million bags of fresh coffee with more than 750,000 positive reviews. It's pretty awesome stuff. And if you love coffee, this is like a window into a coffee universe. Right now, Trade is offering new subscribers a total of $30 off your first order, plus free shipping when you go to drinktrade.com/AAA. Make sure and use that URL, by the way. That's the URL that tells Trade that you heard about this on All About Android, that tells them, hey, it's working. We got to stick with AAA. We hope that they do. That's more than 40 cups of coffee for free by getting that $30 off your first order. Get started by taking their quiz. Go to drinktrade.com/AAA and let Trade find you a coffee you're going to love. That's drinktrade.com/AAA. Like I said, it's $30 off. Don't forget about Mother's Day. That's coming up. I was just looking this up. That's like not this weekend, but next weekend. So put that on your radar. If it's not already on your radar, this is a great way to do it. A Trade subscription, perfect gift for the coffee lovers in your life. And I am suspecting that your mom might like a gift of coffee. So check it out for yourself. Drinktrade.com/AAA. $30 off. And we thank them for their support of All About Android. All right. We've got some juicy nuggets in hardware coming up. That's right now. What are juicy nuggets?
I was just gonna say. I forgot to mention at the top of the show that this is the 575th episode of this program, of this broadcast program, and that means for 575 times, Jason has had to transition to the hardware block. And I don't know if somebody in the chat room or on the wiki or in Discord or on social media out there is keeping track of this, but I cannot tell you if he's used the term juicy nuggets before.
I don't. Probably not. I don't know if I'll use it again, or I might slip and accidentally use it again. I don't want to actually think about what a juicy nugget is.
It doesn't sound
that
good.
appealing.
It's not great.
Yeah, it's not very appealing. I think the news in our hardware is better than juicy nuggets. Yeah. And Ron,
Jason, I just have one question about the juicy nugget.
Yes. I'm afraid.
Is it a moist juicy nugget?
Oh no! Why are you doing that?
Oh, don't go there. That's a 5-letter word, and it's a bad 5-letter word, and I'm not.
I'll be honest. Cursing the show, so you won't have me on again for another 7 years.
Yeah, there it is.
And we have the title: Moist Juicy Nuggets.
Yeah, there it is. Hardware. So, yes. All right. Well, so our first moist juicy nugget of hardware. Actually, Daniel, you covered. So I'm going to run through the kind of the high level details, and then you give us more of the color around it. But sure enough, it is 2022, and yet Google is still playing the unannounced product left behind in a bar game, which you got to question whether or not it's real or not. But apparently the upcoming Pixel Watch, the new Pixel Watch from Google that we're expecting to be announced at Google I/O or sometime this year, was lost and found in a U.S. restaurant. Thanks to photos sent to Android Central. It confirms many of the previous design links. There was a Reddit AMA with the finder of the watch, which just cracks me up, that revealed the watch was left at the restaurant, quote, for a few weeks, expecting that people that left it to return, but that never happened. Seems to reveal that the bands will be proprietary on the watch, and the finder tried to boot up the device, but nothing happened beyond the G logo. It's about a 1/2 inch thick, which is the same as the Samsung Galaxy Watch, and the finder said it is, quote, Apple level quality.
Always
Daniel,
a comparison to Apple.
Yeah, Daniel, I don't know if I missed any key details with that, but what do you think? Is this legit? Was it left behind on purpose? What do you think?
Yeah, that's the question, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll give you some inside baseball, right? I ran Android Central for 5 years. So the first thing that I did was message the new EIC there, Jeremy Johnson, who received this and asked him, like, is this legit? Did this actually happen? And from what he can tell, and now that we have the person TagTech414 on Reddit backing it up, it does appear like it was left at a restaurant, and that the person
weeks.
who works there waited on it for somebody to pick it up, and then reached out to his techie friend, this guy on Reddit, who, when nobody picked it up, would inevitably want to share a bit of information about it. Now, I love a good story, so I have to believe this is true. I want so badly to believe that this is true. And the reason he had to take the photos of the band separately from the watch is that when he picked up the watch, didn't pick up the bands at the same time because they were part of a separate, I don't know, like that whole yarn, right? I'm falling for it hook, line, and sinker. But I will say, right, this does look like a legitimate leak. There's no charger in the box, so one can assume that the reason it's not working may not be that it doesn't have an OS on it, but that the battery died. Now, they were able to boot it up before the battery died, but it didn't get further than the boot screen. Here at AP, we were thinking of, let's reach out to this guy. Let's help him. Is it going to charge on a Pixel stand? Is it going to charge on the back of a Pixel 6 using a reverse wireless charging? This guy apparently has not been able to get it to boot or to charge. And, it's interesting because this thing looks gorgeous. It looks like a really nicely made stainless steel watch, 40 millimeter face. They estimate about 30 millimeters of that is the OLED display. So significant bezels, but if you've used a Galaxy Watch, you know that there are bezels on that, and that if you have the classic, they use the rotating dial on it to cover up the bezel around the OLED, so it doesn't look like it has any, but it does. So, I think Google is working with some decent hardware here, and that rotating crown leads me to believe that they're really taking input seriously here, which I'm excited about. And if they're taking any of the best bits from Fitbit, they're going to integrate some of the sensors that make Fitbit's hardware excellent. I mean, Fitbit's software is garbage, but if they're really making a show at fitness, automatic fitness tracking and integrating it into Google Fit or whatever ends up becoming this conglomeration of Fitbit and Google Fit, I have high hopes that this will be an Apple Watch competitor from a fitness perspective, which the Galaxy Watch 4 is certainly not, because the Galaxy Watch 4 is a great smartwatch. It's not a great fitness tracker.
That side-by-side photo that you just showed, Burke, wow, that thing looks small. I mean,
yeah,
that's good. That's going to fit on a whole lot of different wrists. One thing that I was wondering about from the leaks was like how, like the thickness of it, like it looks really tiny. So hearing that it's the same thickness-ish as the Galaxy Watch 4 gives me some hope as far as like battery performance, because that was kind of my question. Is like, okay, if this thing really is as flat as some of the leaks make it out to be, like, how are you going to get any sort of duration out of this thing? You need a battery in there in order to power it, and smartwatches don't necessarily perform as well as like fitness watches, on the smaller form factors. So, but I'm curious. Like this, it looks like the design language of it. It's very sharp. Like it's very, I don't know. It doesn't. I guess what I see often in smartwatches is that it looks like a wearable made by a technology company and not like a watch made by a watch company. And this kind of veers closer to that kind of watch made by a watch company look. It looks like a watch face. It doesn't look like a piece of technology as much as a watch. So that's good.
On the other hand, I would say, Fossil is one of the only Wear OS makers these days, and it owns every brand you could think of, right? And I love the Scoggin versions of its Fossil Gen whatever iteration. So I have the new Scoggin Falster Gen 3. It's built on the Fossil Gen 6 platform, which runs the fastest Qualcomm Wear chip available today. It runs the latest version of Wear OS that's not a Galaxy Watch 4, right? So it's the best Wear OS experience that you can get outside of the Galaxy Watch, which is still it like hews pretty close to the Tizen like experience. You know, it doesn't emphasize Google services in a way that a traditional Wear OS watch does. And what I think about that is that the hardware is great and the software is terrible. And I've been waiting for Google to marry hardware and software on a Pixel Watch the way that they do on a Pixel phone. And you know, if this runs Tensor, which it probably does, because we've heard stories about how they can scale Tensor to be, you know, to be a really low power SoC that can do what it needs to do on a smartwatch. I'm hopeful that battery life will be better than it is on today's smartwatches that run Wear OS.
Yeah.
Even the larger 46 millimeter Galaxy Watch 4, I find doesn't have great battery life. Like you're looking at 18 hours or so. And my wife, she's got an Apple Watch, the 7th Series 7, that lasts 2.5 days for her easily, right?
Wow.
So I'm hopeful, but I would not be surprised if battery life is the biggest concern that buyers end up having with this thing.
And if this has, so I wasn't aware of the rumors around the Tensor chip being inside. I kind of just assumed, and I don't know why I assumed this, because
Didn't
now
that came up a couple weeks ago, didn't it? I feel
was
like
it that there was a Tensor chip
Yeah.
inside, or if it did, it didn't stick, because I've still kind of been in that mindset of like, oh, it's going to be the latest Wear chip, but it makes sense for it to be a Tensor chip. Actually, if Google was, you know, with all the energy that Google put around the Tensor chip in the Pixel 6 and leaning into it, I guess it would be really surprising if Google came out with a watch and was like, well, no, it's not using the Tensor chip. I mean, it wouldn't be a vote of confidence for their chip that they spent all that money and time creating and promoting if they didn't have it in there. So,
yeah, I mean, it's certainly not going to be the same chip, right? But it'll be based on an Exynos architecture, which the Tensor is. I'm guessing it will be a version of what's in the Galaxy Watch 4 with a custom Google coprocessor, which basically is the Tensor, right? It's a high-end Exynos chip from I think a couple of years ago with minor modifications and a Google made coprocessor in there, and it runs great. And I think there's no chance in hell that this will be that the Google Watch will run Qualcomm. I will eat my shoes if it runs a Snapdragon Wear.
Wow.
Chip.
Bold.
I'll do it live on air. I will.
Would it be a juicy nugget shoe, or would it
moist juicy nugget?
Yeah, would it be a moist shoe?
After I eat it, it certainly will.
All right. Well, thankfully, you're not going to have to do that, because I think you're right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense that it would not have that in it. And it doesn't seem like, more and more, it seems like we're probably not going to have to wait too much longer to find out at least some information about this. Like, I don't know if this is like Google I/O. Here's the new watch. You can buy it now, but maybe they mention it. Maybe they tease it.
It depends, because as we've seen, Google is never predictable with that. It's like they're rolling out hardware at I/O. No, they do it at that October event. No, that October event's got nothing. It's at I/O. Like, I feel like there's not enough consistency year over year.
Yeah.
Where like if the product is ready and they're ready to go, like I would not be like, if we're gonna see the Pixel 6a at I/O, I'm fully expecting to see the watch and the foldable at I/O. Like, I think that is a eventuality possibility.
Okay, but hear me out. I think so. Sundar Pichai today was Google's Q1 earnings, said something about how the Pixel 6 is fastest selling Pixel phone ever. Blah blah blah. We're building broad consumer awareness of the brand and making good progress. I'm excited about the products we have coming and look forward to sharing more at Google I/O. That does not sound like software to me. That sounds like hardware.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's exciting. That's something more to look forward to. Although they're really good at doing that and then making you think you're going to see something. And then what you end up seeing is the Pixel 6a, which we are feeling way more confident of seeing by summertime. Yeah. So that would make a whole lot of sense at Google I/O. And then maybe the watch does end up coming at the hardware event later in the year,
in October,
and they do what they did with the Pixel 6 last year and the year before of like the super advanced kind of like, all right, here it is in the summertime, and then they've got months leading up to it. Who the heck knows?
Like the get ahead of the leaks announcement.
Exactly.
Yes,
to be
we're
going
going to put it in a box in the window of a store and let people look at it and that sort of thing. Yeah. That said, going back to this watch, I'm if this is indeed the watch, I'm baffled that someone lost it and didn't go back to get it.
I think that's an important thing to circle back on, Ron. Like, once again, like even with the Apple, like I can't remember the outcome of the Apple, the lost iPhone story, whether that was, true, like believed to be an accident, or if it was like, okay, that was just really smart marketing
thing or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, it's how do you have in your possession something like that is so top secret, and then you leave it somewhere and you never go back for it? I don't understand.
You never go back for it, and then you still have a job, and then like it's just like all those things just seem bad. Like, oh, I don't know, I lost it. Who knows where I could have lost it?
Anyways, no one's going to publish that in an Android blog.
Like, and Lord knows everybody. Daniel, I'm much like you. I want to believe. I like the crazy stories. I like all this sort of stuff. But it's like, I don't know. This just seems not that I don't believe that. Like this definitely checks a lot of the boxes that we've discussed and that we're looking in terms of the leaks around the watch. But this whole thing just seems just bizarre. It just seems weird.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think there's a difference between the way Apple responded to the iPhone 4 leak, which was Steve Jobs called up the editor of Gizmodo and was like, "Give me my phone back."
Yes, right. And like, okay, that's right. Now, thank you for the reminder. That's how that went down.
And this, which is an engineering sample of a smartwatch, which is already leaked like a lot. The thing that baffles me is that the person didn't go back for it.
Yes.
It's not like they didn't realize they lost it. Inevitably they did. So either they were instructed not to go back for it because for whatever reason, right? Whether they knew that it was going to leak and they just said, let it be, or they didn't want to, they didn't want to have to face up to it, or I that part I can't understand. Whether Google PR just wanted to shut the whole thing down and potentially hope that nobody reported it. That part is very strange. Or that person was just reprimanded and fired, and they were like, all right, well,
and moving on.
Then they were just going to let it be.
It's so strange. Strange.
I mean, advanced teasing of their products has worked out well for Google. So, at this point, it could be seen as like, all right, well, then if that happened, it happened. What is our playbook if it does start to hit the press? So who knows? Maybe tomorrow we'll start seeing the Google like, well, you've seen a little. Now it's time to see more. Here's our official reveal ahead of Google I/O when you're going to hear more. Who the heck knows?
Jeez.
Who knows? Real quick, there's not a whole lot on this one, but 9 to 5 Google wrote and they about the Pixel 6 Pro, saying that it originally intended to release with Face Unlock. They say they're certain that right up until the release, this was going to happen. Obviously, there's no dedicated hardware on the Pixel 6 Pro like the Soli radar. Instead, it relies on the front-facing camera, which, does it require a certain kind of front-facing camera in order to do this more effectively than others? Apparently, this wasn't going to hit the Pixel 6. It was only going to hit the 6 Pro. But apparently, Google is working to bring this still as a feature on 9 to 5 Google. They said the next big quarterly update, which, at this point would be about 9 months into the release of this phone, or 8 months, by the time it comes out. So if you like your Face Unlock, maybe it's coming to your 6 Pro at some point. I certainly got used to having the Face Unlock on the 4 XL. I actually really liked it a lot, even though the Soli, didn't have a whole lot of use cases outside of that, in my opinion. But that one feature I really liked. So I suppose it would be nice to have it back. I've gotten used to not having it, though. So there you go. Not a whole lot there.
I like this, if only because Google does occasionally roll out massive features, and I consider this a massive feature, months into the product cycle of its phone. And I understand how difficult a problem this is to solve, right? Because this is not a Face ID or a solely sensor-powered face unlock. This would inevitably need to match the threshold of a capacitive or optical fingerprint sensor for Google, meaning that it would inevitably have to engage with the biometrics API that allows you to actually do stuff on your phone beyond just unlock it, right? If this was just a straight unlock your lock screen feature that's been on Samsung phones and basically every other non-Pixel for years, that would not be significant. I don't think Google wants to do that. Google wants to release a 2D camera-based secure authentication solution that relies mostly on software to get this done, to pass that threshold. And that's why this problem is so difficult. And I would prefer Google gets it right so that you can't just hold up a 2D picture of somebody to unlock their phone on a Pixel 6 Pro. And that's just incredible. You need to have such a massive machine learning database here to ensure that it can't be spoofed. Right. And yeah, that's my theory, is that they couldn't get it right for launch and they wanted to wait until later on in the product cycle.
Which is the right call, which to your point is the right call. Like if it's going to be Google, they got to get it right. And the last thing you want is those embarrassing stories of people breaking the face unlock, right? Like this is why, like I feel like face unlock is one of these like amazing pieces of functionality that everybody seems to want purely for the punchline of when it doesn't work. Right? Like I don't know. I just feel like it's not. I think fingerprint unlock is far more, secure and intuitive to how you hold the phone. You're already doing it. I don't know. I just don't like holding my face up to the phone for selfies and video chatting anyway. So face unlock just falls under that category. But it's too risky and too embarrassing to get wrong. So
yeah, and they've gotten it wrong before. Back on the Galaxy Nexus, when it was literally as easy as holding up a picture of your face, and and you could get into the phone. But I mean, the technology that was happening underneath was just miles apart from where it is now. The capability that Google has with its software to use a whole bunch of different signals to actually, like you said, Daniel, authenticate that in a very secure way. And Google's got to feel really comfortable that not just anything is going to unlock that and give some random person access to really important, valuable information on a user's phone. So that's a really good point. That makes me more excited for it. I do like the freedom of a face unlock when it's implemented well. I don't feel like you have to hold it up and like into a selfie pose. It's like when it's implemented well, in my experience, it's just as good as like I look at the phone to use it and it gets the information it needs and lets me write in. I'm not changing how I use it in order to unlock, and that's nice. It's nicer than having to do something really purposefully in order to get in.
Yep.
So yeah.
All right. Well, last little bit of going back to watch talk. So when the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 came out, everybody agreed this is a great wearable, but it seemed to be missing one little element, and that was assistant support. Even though it's running Wear OS 3, which is the only wearable doing so at the moment still, it launched with only Bixby voice support. And a Spanish promo ad by Samsung shows a man asking his Watch 4, "Hey G, play music on YouTube Music." Samsung has been teasing since February that the feature would be coming soon, but we don't know when. Maybe I/O, maybe, or some other point. But it's getting teased, so it might be coming soon. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. It's one of those features that should have been there. I guess I understand it's Samsung. Yeah. Samsung still really wants you to use their Bixby, but they've made this, they've made that adjustment on other devices that they were all in on Bixby for, and I don't know, on a smartwatch, it's just I'm never going to use Bixby on my smartwatch. I will use the assistant functionality, so it's nice to know that it's coming eventually. At this point, the Galaxy Watch 4 has been out. How long has it been out? 6-8 months? I mean, it's
August. Yeah,
it's August
last year.
Okay, so soon it'll be about a year which is a long time to wait for a big feature like this, but hopefully we'll see that soon. All right. Coming up next, we've got some app news. Stay tuned for that.
I do love the game of chicken that Google is playing with Wallet, by the way. I just love it. So last week we talked about friend of the show, Michelle Ramon's discovery that Wallet might return to the Google Pay branding, if you might remember, in the ever snake eating its own tail Ouroboros of Google Wallet / Google Pay. But this week, Michelle has expanded on that info with more evidence. However, it's actually looking like things might be reverting to the way they were prior to the merge that happened in 2018. So if you are keeping track at home, yes, Google might be winding up to come full circle on Google Wallet sometime soon. The new Wallet app could house quote unquote payment cards, loyalty cards, and more all in one place. Airline passes, theater tickets, gift cards, and transit fare cards too. It pulls passes from Gmail, something Google Pay does now. Duplicates contact payments features without all the bloat of the current Google Pay app. And ultimately, Google wanted Google Pay to compete with Mint / Venmo, and it really hasn't in any meaningful way. So this might be a reaction to that, which cracks me up because all those selling points about this new Google Wallet seem to me like the selling points that were in Google, were the last Google Pay iteration. Yeah. Like it just keeps, it's a merry-go-round that never ends.
Why the reversion to wallet nomenclature? Like any theories on that? Like why can't, like Google Pay makes sense to me. Like why do they have to go back to wallet? Do you have any guesses on that, Daniel? Like that's just confusing to me.
I don't know. I mean, maybe this is just like a skeuomorphic, going back to like the original iPhone design theory of like a wallet doesn't just house payment cards. It houses your loyalty cards and it houses your transit card. And in theory, wallet is a better name for what Google Pay is today. And back in 2018, when Google rebranded it to, from Android Pay to Google Pay, and they dropped the wallet brand, they were really, really focused on payments, on digital payments. They wanted your phone to replace your credit card, right? And they made this big push. It was supposed to compete with Apple Pay and Samsung Pay. I mean, remember all of that land grab of like, oh, we support these banks first, and my bank doesn't support Apple Pay, but it supports Google, or Samsung Pay, but it supports Google, whatever. Like that was a big deal, and that wasn't even that long ago. It was 4 or 5 years ago. And now every bank supports every service, right? And it's just, you take it for granted that if your phone supports NFC, Motorola, you can pay in most places. Yep. And like I find that it's just table stakes. So now Google is reverting to wallet because it wants to be everything to everybody. And it makes more sense to be called wallet. That's my theory. Whether it's the right decision, I will leave that up to somebody else.
Well, yeah. And as I think about it too, like wallet to my mind seems to make sense for the things that you keep on your phone, for the place that you keep all of these cards and payment methods. But Google Pay seems to be the right nomenclature for when you go into a store. Like it would be weird to go into a store and say, "Can I pay with Google Wallet?" Because Google Pay makes much more sense in that scenario. Does that make sense? I don't know if the difference between those two.
No, I think that does make sense. And the problem is that they're like, and it called it, in the conversation, the current version of Google Pay or GPay or whatever it is bloated to all get out.
Yeah,
right.
I know.
Like,
it's got so many different features in there that I've just never used.
It's got so many different features, and the design, and it's also built in a way that when I'm in the store, I can't find what I'm looking for in the app. Like, where's my loyalty card? How does this? Like literally, my interaction with Google Pay now is completely all through touch, where I tap into the terminal.
That's
and
all
it gives me Walgreens my card. I pay it with my debit card, and we're done.
Yep.
Right. All the crap about, like, remember when this rolled out and like if you did these tasks, you could get money and you could refer a friend and get money. Like there were all these like gamification nonsense to get you to use it.
Yep.
And it still didn't. It brought no joy in using that app at all at any point. right? And they just keep swinging for the fences by packing in functionality and missing the ease of use of a Venmo. Like a Venmo isn't a place where you store your loyalty card and all this sort of stuff. Like to Daniel's point, like that, I feel like it's trying to do too much under the hood, right? And so I see a world where Google Wallet and GPay both exist, and maybe Google Pay is an aspect of Google Wallet. Going back to your point, Jason, where it's a functional, like I'm going to pay with Google Pay, I'm going to send my friend money with Google Pay, that sort of thing. But all my cards are kept in my wallet. I don't know.
Kept in my Google Wallet.
Ron, that's exactly it. I mean, if you look at the screenshots that Michelle posted, it makes mention of GPay and Google Pay within Wallet. Right. So it's just a feature now within the overarching wallet.
Got it. Okay.
Which feels right.
All right.
Yeah.
So that makes more sense. Yeah. They're kept.
They'll get
within
it.
the wallet.
I mean, listen. Google was able to get messaging right. So of course they're going to get payments right. I mean, like their track record is clear that clearly they're solving these things. So
it might take 10 years, but they'll get there eventually. Oh boy. Okay, so Google Play Store. We've talked in the past about a data safety feature in the Google Play Store, and this is basically. Well, it was originally meant to launch in February. It's launching now, apparently. It's going to take a few weeks to roll out. And basically, it's a section that's going to appear above the review score on a Google Play Store page for a particular app. And it's going to have, categories for different data types, details on information that developers are collecting, that sort of stuff. Name, email, if they're collecting your name, your email, location, your browsing activity, that sort of stuff. Also, how that data is going to be used. Is it used for personalizing your experience? Is it used to prevent fraud? Used for communication? All that kind of stuff. So it's kind of, I think Apple has a similar feature called nutrition labels. I don't know if that's the official name for it, but that's how everybody was writing about it back in 2020. That, I think was part of the reason that Google, looked further into this for the Play Store. But so that's actually finally rolling out. It's supposed to roll out a few months ago. It's happening now. Developers actually still have until July 20th. So that's another 12 weeks or so to submit the forms for their apps with this information. Without that information, those apps may, quote, face additional enforcement actions in the future. So that could be, removal from the Google Play Store, that sort of stuff. But it's basically information for users to know exactly what's happening with, whatever data is being shared with the developers. And I think it's great that that's happening. I'm all for it. What do you think, Dana?
Yeah, I think this is the right move. Unfortunately, I don't think it has the teeth that it needs to have. It's voluntary at the moment, and it's not going to be adhered to as closely as it would on the App Store, because developers just inevitably get away with stuff on the Play Store that they don't on the App Store.
Yeah, true.
I do worry that some of the disclosures on smaller apps will probably not be as comprehensive as they need to be. But I'm also a little worried that some of the indie developers are going to disclose things and people are going to get worried.
Yeah.
A similar thing happened with permissions, and this still happens to this day, where a developer will say, "Hey, I need your phone permission for something."
What, are you going to cull through all of my contacts and you're going to call all of my friends and blah, blah, blah?
And it's because, like, hidden in the contact us, settings contact us part, it's like, hey, just call us if you have a problem, but we'll need to access your phone permissions to do that. I do worry that Google does not have the same impetus to. This was done under duress. It was done as a way to fend off regulation in the EU. I think the altruistic part of this is good, in that it will disclose more information about what your apps are reading from your phone. But at the same time, the fact that it's voluntary, as I said, is problematic. And the fact that I feel like this won't be enforced universally in the same way for every developer will also be a problem. But we'll see. I mean, we have a few weeks, and I haven't seen it in action on any apps on my phone yet. It's rolling out over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Burke, so our video watchers or video viewers are seeing the video that the introducing data safety section play console that Google posted on YouTube. Burke, can you scrub back to the beginning of that video for a moment? So it shows like a sample app, which I did look in the Google Play Store, looks to not exist. There it is. Blasto.
I love that game.
All right. I just looked it up and I was like, this doesn't exist. So I like the attention to detail in there, not using an actual app to talk about it, to talk about the data safety stuff. So, yeah. Sorry. So someone should go make Blasto, please.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, make Blasto. You've already got an advertisement for it.
Yeah, there it is.
5 million downloads.
Yes, exactly.
We'll talk. Well, yeah, exactly. It's got a ton of 5 million. It's crazy. That's what triggered me. I'm like, are they really showing off an app that has 5 million downloads, but it doesn't exist? So,
That's interesting.
Well, so keeping in the Google Play kind of area and kind of restrictions and things like that they're doing to developers, there's a new Google Play Store policy that's banning call recording apps from the Play Store. And Daniel, you mentioned how developers get away with a lot more on Google than they do on Apple, and this is actually part of Google's continuing crackdown on the accessibility API use in Android for non-accessibility reasons. And Google said, quote, "The accessibility API is not designed and cannot be requested for remote call audio recording." So the ban will kick in on May 11th, which happens, ironically, to be day one of Google I/O. And for the record, Google's own Google phone app can record calls in some countries where it's legal and clear and okay, but Google's keeping the proper API access to third-party devs to use for the same function. And if this is something you need, I guess you could always sideload it, but like, part of me bums me out because that was like one of the things that differentiated Android from iOS is that you could do stuff like this on Android, right?
Yeah.
Like you could not only have an app that records phone calls as needed, presumably following legal guidelines and all this sort of stuff. You got to tell the person the call's being recorded, et cetera, et cetera. But not only could you do it, but you had a choice in the matter. You could pick from various apps that could do it. And I get that it's a loophole in the accessibility API that enabled developers to do this, but it kind of bums me out that it's taking, I feel like we keep subtracting from what makes Android so special. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Daniel, what do you think?
I don't know. I'm of two minds about this because it's not explicitly banning those kinds of apps. I mean, if you create an app that requires root, which some do, you can do this, right? You can create your private APIs and get through and record calls. What this is doing is it's just furthering a project that Google started back in 2017, where it's trying to prevent its accessibility APIs from being abused. And I get it, right? They did the same thing with password managers, where password managers were using the accessibility API in order to allow for third-party keyboards to access input prompts for usernames and passwords. And this was before Google had put a proper password API for those apps like 1Password or LastPass. So that really was the only way to call up a way to quickly add a username and password. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, there is no replacement API for this. They tested something in Android 11, but it never got to the public release. So for places that do legally support call recording, other than the Google phone, which really wasn't designed for this purpose, there's no way to do it unless you have a rooted phone. And I do agree that sucks. There's no fix for this. It's just they're taking the feature away from people that use it, and that does suck.
Yeah.
Yep.
I completely agree. I do hope because this keeps cropping up around the access to the accessibility features, in different ways, right? And I continue to hope that maybe there is some way that Google recognizes that there is, this category of apps that rely on those APIs, and some of them might be doing things incorrectly or with bad intentions or whatever, but some of them are doing very legitimate things that just happen to be enabled or accessible because of those particular APIs. And I understand why Google would want those APIs to be used for just what they are designed to be used for. But I would hope that Google would also recognize that some of those apps do deserve to exist, and can they create, is there a larger kind of category of an API that could be created to serve apps like those if there's enough demand or, reason for those apps to exist? I don't know if Google, has any intention to do that. But when I see things like this, I agree. I'm of two minds. I understand the need to, or the desire to, kind of control what those APIs are used for so that it doesn't get out of hand, so they aren't used, in nefarious ways. But also, those APIs have enabled apps that do some really really cool things, really useful things, beneficial things that deserve to exist, whether they're using those APIs or not. So how can you make a system that achieves the security and control that Google is looking for, and also allows those apps to exist? Who knows what the answer is there, but I would hope that Google would be looking into that. Maybe that can be a feature in the future, a future feature. All right. Coming up next, we have a bunch of your feedback. AAA at twit.tv, 347-SHOW-AAA. Those are the places where you can contact us to let us know what's on your mind in the world of Android. I'll start off here. We've got an email from Matt, not in orbit in our Discord, so Club Twit member. Thank you, Matt. From Ann Arbor, Michigan, also called our local security pro, because Matt says, I had to pause yesterday's episode, this is last week's episode, to answer the question Jason asked about why some sites prevent you from pasting into password fields. And Matt says, it is a garbage security, and securities in quotes, setting. Scanners like industry leader Nessus identify that as a vulnerability. This puts site runners in the position of either explaining the vulnerability to likely non-technical management, or just changing the settings so that the scan is clean. So that was just a random, comment / discussion point from last week's episode, trying to understand, why can't I just paste the password into the field? What is it about that that's insecure? And this makes a lot of sense. It's identified as a vulnerability, and instead of trying to explain, have that be an explanation, it's just easier to disable it altogether, and we are where we are as a result of that. So
can I tell you, I did have a moment last week after the show where one of those, the next morning, what did I do last night, where I was like, oh my God, did I rant about password requirements on the show? I really did, didn't I, Jason?
Yes.
I got really mad at the fact that password requirements across different sites are different, and it is, and it's it was the kind of thing that has always kind of frustrated me, but I didn't really verbalize it until that moment. So it's not like that whole rant came from a source of ongoing frustration, like my Google Home fight that I've been having. But yeah, the more I think about it, it's wow, passwords suck. It's just not good.
We need a new system. We need a new non-password system. Yeah.
Some sort of identification security. You would think, again, it's 2022. You'd think I'd have a wireless mouse that actually maintained the connection, and you would think that we would have a better way of maintaining account security.
Yeah. So you'd think someone's going to figure that out. They're going to make a lot of money.
They're trying. There's a lot of password successors, potential successors out there, and nothing has stuck yet.
Yep. Indeed.
But the requirements for 8 to 12 characters, I almost refuse to use the services. If you're requiring me to use a password that's between 8 and 12 characters, you're doing it wrong. Get a new CTO because you failed your job. And if you can't paste passwords, then just quit. I'm sorry. You don't understand passwords.
I mean, what cracks me up is that, like, so at one of my many, I won't say which one, but one of my many business endeavors and jobs and things like that, there's an IT requirement to change your password every, I forget what it is, 45 days or 60 days or whatever it is. And I have a password schema, and I literally just increment every time. You know, like, so it's like the core of it is the same, except one digit changes, because every 60 days I can't remember a new password. You know what I mean? Like that's the, I don't know. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way out there.
There's got to be a better way.
Yeah. Well,
all right. You have the next one.
I do have the next one. So this email comes in from Jonathan. That's all, Jonathan. Simply Jonathan.
We don't know where you're from, Jonathan.
We don't know where you're from. We don't know your name. We don't know what your username. Are you in Discord? Where are you? Where are you, Jonathan? Anyway, Jonathan says, I was listening to the email of the week.
Oh, there we go. We can hear it this week.
During episode 574, and could totally relate to the pocket lint issue the listener described, as I've definitely had issues with this in the past. However, starting a few years now, I've started to use silicone USB-C dust plugs, such as what can be found at the following Amazon link. And he provided the Amazon link, which we'll pull up there. There it is. Video watchers are seeing this. It is a port plug USB-C dust plug, compatible with the Samsung Galaxy Series Pixel, a whole bunch of things. Very cool. And it also includes headphone jack plugs and SIM tool, which is neat. And he's attached a few photos of the plugs being used on his Pixel 5 and Pixel Buds. I don't know if we can show those to our video viewers or not, but it's an extra item that you have to keep track of when plugging your phone in, unless you're leveraging wireless charging. But in my opinion, it's 100% worth the trade-off of never having to worry about tending to or cleaning out the USB-C port. The plugs do a surprisingly good job of staying in place when going in and out of the pocket, but the Amazon listing does also come with several extras in the event that you were to misplace one of the plugs at some point. So there's a handy solution if you have a lint problem in your USB-C devices. Just plug them up. For me, I'm not using wireless charging. I plug my phone in nightly. I feel like I would lose these. I just like I don't know. This isn't for me, but I'm glad it works for you, Jonathan. So
yeah, I would have a hard time keeping track of those too, like popping it out and setting it somewhere where they wouldn't just roll off onto the floor or something like, they're so small and easy to lose, but it works for Jonathan. And it
looks like something one of my kids would try to eat, and that kind of worries me.
That's true. So that's a good point.
I'm I know in the pre-show we were talking about parenting and stuff like that, but my son's at the phase of taking it really personally when you tell him not to do something. So I've had to change my whole approach, and instead of telling him not to do something, suggest he do something else, which is like a whole new kind of like, hey, instead of putting that in your mouth, why don't you put it on the shelf? And like,
I've got an idea.
I tell him don't do that. He takes it really personally.
Yeah, I've started following a lot of parenting Instagram accounts because they have a lot of these tips. And even if you don't follow them all the time, it's like, oh, yeah, I guess I could say, we're not doing that right now. It's like, oh, we're going to do something else today. Like, let's, we're going to try something new or whatever.
Right. Positive.
It does help to try to reframe it. It's really hard to do it in the moment.
It's really hard. And the thing that helps me is that trying to be aware of it in the moment and then quickly do the logic processing. Is this something my parents would have said? And if so, don't say it. So like that, because we were very much in the, tell you not to do something and smack you and then move on, right? Yeah. So like as long as I don't do that, then we're in better shape. So that's been my little mental trick. But it's hard in the moment. You're right. It's hard to switch those gears. So,
yeah, it is. It is.
I want to go back to the port plugs for a second, because that would be a good challenge to see whether you could find something or get every device that you use on a regular basis to support wireless charging. Like, if you really are set on not having dust plug up your ports, that is a massive challenge. Find a phone, find earbuds, find a watch. They all have to support wireless charging. I guess the watch isn't really a problem, but that to me is a big challenge. I'm almost there. I rarely use things that require physical charging anymore. But occasionally I do. I mean, especially when you want to get something charged quickly. But
Burke, who works on the show and behind the scenes, is a big fan of wireless options. So I'm sure you and he could talk offline about wireless charging and wireless. Burke does not like cables. He doesn't like wires. Yeah. So
except Ethernet.
Yeah, he's
really
gritting his teeth back here.
There was a phone. Was it the Meizu Zero? I can't remember which one it was, but it was back a few years ago, and it was advertised as like the portless phone. Like it didn't have any holes in it. Like it was just all wireless charging.
I remember that. Yeah.
Maybe it was the Meizu Zero.
It was.
The 2019. Okay. This is. Wow. Yeah.
Back in the day when experiments involved no ports instead of folding.
Right.
First holeless phone. That's fantastic.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Man.
There
you know who would like that phone? People with that fear of holes.
Yeah.
That's true.
See, it's truly holeless, it says. I wonder how many people bought that phone. 39 backers for that for that fundraising. Not that many, apparently.
Yikes.
Ouch. Anywho, and finally, we have made it to the email of the week. And this week's emailer of the week is Jay Cook from Tacoma, Washington. Jay writes, my wife and I are celebrating our 5th wedding anniversary, and get this. The Google Assistant made our dinner reservations for me. It seems that this type of service was promoted to us a long time ago, but here we are living in the future. The night that I decided to make the dinner reservation, the restaurant was already closed. The assistant text messaged me back to report failing to make the reservation and said it would attempt again the day after next. 2 days later, I received a text message from the Google Assistant confirming that my reservation was made at the time I asked for. I called last week and confirmed over the phone with an actual human, being that my reservation was actually scheduled. He confirmed that it was indeed. Then I had to ask him how all this worked out. I was curious, I told him. Did my request show up on a website like Yelp? He said, nope. It was a creepy computer voice. His words. So there you have it. And I now have a robot assistant that makes dinner reservations for me. Who would have thought? Keep up the great work, bringing up all the aspects of these modern miracles to our curious minds. And he included some photo shots. So this is, in the Assistant, there's the restaurant. There's a little reserve button that he used in Assistant. Tap that. I think if you go to the next one, it pulls up kind of the confirmation, your reservation for party of 2 on this particular date. And that reservation is placed, or at least in the queue. And then I think the next screenshot is this like confirmation that it happened, that it was on the schedule and upcoming. So there you go. You don't even have to call them anymore. It calls for you. Anyone going to use this?
No.
I would be shocked if most people on the other end didn't just hang up.
Yeah, I wondered about that
too. It wasn't a real person.
Right.
Well, it's funny. I've been using the assistant screening option, because I'll be at work and I'll be on Zoom, I'll be talking whatever, and I'll see a phone call coming. I don't recognize the number, and usually I'll just ignore it, let it go to voicemail. But now I'll be like, screen call, and I watch the Google Assistant do, hello, you've reached someone who's using Google blah blah blah, and then it's like, let it say your thing, and then like immediately hang up, and like they stay on the phone long enough to hear the message. And then hang up, which I think is interesting. So
yeah. I mean, maybe it's different if it's a business, because the business could be hearing, or maybe they're used to it. Like maybe they're getting enough of these that it's like, oh, this is the Google reservation thing. You know what I mean? Like, are they going to turn away business only because it's a robotic voice making a reservation? Right. I don't know. Some people probably do, but I'm imagining, hopefully. They're getting at least a couple of these, enough to know that they happen. And once that happens, then maybe they don't hang up. I don't know. But still, but I don't know that I have, our emailer, Jay, waited a couple of days for a confirmation for this reservation with his wife. Like, I don't know that I would have waited that long. I probably would have called, let's get this reservation on the books. I don't want to trust that the assistant's going to do it over the course of the next couple of days, because it might be available now and not be available 2 days from now. I don't know. It's a long time to risk it, in my opinion. But still cool nonetheless that it's possible. All right, with that, we are at the end of this episode of All About Android. Thank you so much for your email of the week, Jay.
And happy anniversary.
And happy anniversary.
Yeah.
And we will send you a plaque. No, we will not. We do not have a plaque. I'm sorry. But we will give you an applause. There you go. Courtesy of Berg. And thank you, Daniel. So much fun having you on. Always great to get you on the show. And we appreciate your return to the show, your triumphant return to the show.
So happy to be here.
Yeah. Tell people a little bit about what you're doing. I know you have a podcast. Like you just relaunched the Android Police podcast. Tell us about that.
I did. I missed podcasting so much that I relaunched the podcast with my former Android Central coworker, Ara Wagner. So it's a lot shorter. We've kind of kept it to around 35 minutes. We have a bit of a format, which I like. It's a round table. So everybody brings one topic that they want to talk about that week. And we talk about it for 7 to 12 minutes and then we move on. And it's really not a news show unless it's a newsy week. It's more like, what do you have on your mind tech related this week that you want to bring up? So it is a bit of a different show. We didn't want to try to reproduce the Android Central podcast because that exists. We didn't want to reproduce this great show because you guys are awesome. We wanted to do our own thing. So it's an alternative if you're looking for something a little bit shorter and new. And when I'm not hosting that, I'm running AndroidPolice.com. I also run 3 other sites on the Valnet Tech Network, including makeuseof.com, thegamer.com, and gamerant.com. So a bunch of stuff. But this is awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to be back.
Well, Daniel, it's always a pleasure getting you on. So thank you for hopping on. There we go. That's the shot.
There you go. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Love you.
Yeah. Thank you. Good to have you on tonight. And good to have you back, Ron, as always. What do you want to leave people with?
Yeah, just go follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at RonXO, and you can go check out Scorebit in the Google Play Store if you're into pinball. Check it out. If you know, you know. So I'll just leave it at that.
If you know, you know. Yeah. Right on. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Victor, for pushing the buttons for part of today's show, and then thank you, Burke, for pushing buttons for the other part of today. I'm so confused. Oh, okay. Victor's been on since 6:30, so yeah, about the last 20 minutes. So it's a team effort. So thanks to you both. You can find me on Twitter at Jason Howell. Also, Tech News Weekly every Thursday. Twit.tv/TNW. I do that with Micah Sargent, interview show. So we have a lot of fun with that. Don't forget, we have Club Twit, twit.tv/clubtwit. If you go there, it's $7 a month. You get all of our shows with no ads. You don't even hear this ad, by the way. You also get an exclusive Twit Plus podcast feed, lots of extra bonus content like tonight. We, before the show, we were talking about quadraphonic sound. We were talking a little bit about parenthood. And then Ron brought a tech problem to the pre-show. So you're probably going to get all of that if you're a member of Club Twit in the Twit Plus podcast feed. And then also access to the members-only Discord, which is just a heck of a lot of fun. So $7 a month, twit.tv/clubtwit. That's it for this week's episode of All About Android. We do the show every Tuesday evening. So twit.tv/AAA is the show page on the web for this show. Go there. You can jump out to all the podcatchers that we have listed there. You can also jump out to YouTube and subscribe there if you prefer. Or you can just watch it on the page. I don't know who actually just, tunes in, checks out the players on the page. I'm sure some of you do, but I would suggest you subscribe because then you don't have to do all that work. It just delivers to you like magic. And I love that new hero image there as well.
I didn't even know that went up. Look at that. That was like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. That's right.
Awesome.
When Ron was in town. So twit.tv/AAA. But that is it. We're going to round things out. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time on All About Android. Bye, everybody.
Good night, my friends.
See ya.
Hey, I'm Rod Pyle, editor of Ad Astra magazine, and each week I'm joined by Tarek Malik, the editor-in-chief over at space.com, in our new This Week in Space podcast. Every Friday, Tarek and I take a deep dive into the stories that define the new space age. What's NASA up to? When will Americans once again set foot on the moon? And how about those samples from the Perseverance rover? When are those coming home? What the heck has Elon Musk done now? In addition to all the latest and greatest in space exploration, we'll take an occasional look at bits of spaceflight history that you probably never heard of, and all with an eye towards having a good time along the way. Check us out on your favorite podcatcher.